Last minute shoppers, I got you. If you're still searching for gift ideas, grab a book. There have been so many amazing titles released this year by Canadian writers. We've got NHL coaches to rock royalty, a collection of poetry, and even some fantastic fiction. Vicki Vansickle is here with an array of authors to please even the pickiest reader on your list. Vicki, it's great to have you.
That's right. Thank you for having me.
So let's start off with fiction. What do we got?
Yes, so the first book here is In the Upper Country. This was on almost every single Canadian award list this year, and with good reason. It's the story of two Black women who end up in a Black community in Canada after they follow the Underground Railroad up to Ontario, and one of them is accused of murder. And so it really is an interesting piece of Canadian history, and I love to learn history through character. And this story, you're gonna love these characters. We really will stay with you long after you finish it.
That's amazing. That's how I learned, honestly, as a YA reader about the wars, the World War I and World War II, was through fiction like this.
Putting a person and a place that you can really get into and live in their shoes really helps with that, I think.
That's amazing. What else do we have?
Yeah, so next we have Sunshine Nails. This is the name of a nail salon owned by a Vietnamese-Canadian family in the Junction in Toronto. And there's a new sort of U.S. fancy salon coming in, and so their business is in trouble. So this is a really great story about family and about legacy and what it's like to be an immigrant and sort of as the world keeps changing and what does the next generation do. But I really loved it. It was really fun, really great family dynamics as well. The next one is The Whispers. So if you're a person who really likes thrillers, domestic thrillers, or psychological thrillers, this sort of falls under a category that I also like to call The Secret Lives of Women. So this is about 4 women in a neighborhood. On the surface, everything looks wonderful, but an incident happens at a summer party that sort of unravels the truth about what's going on, and there's an incredible twist on that last page.
Ooh, and then speaking of women, that's our next book as well.
What Wild Women Do. This is a story in 2 narratives. It's about a young screenwriter who's sort of struggling with an idea, who when she's in the woods on a vacation stumbles upon the story of an heiress who ran a women's retreat in the 70s who just went missing, and nobody knows anything about her. So she decides that solving this might be a good screenplay, but it also really helps her figure out some things that are going on in her own life as well.
For those who love poetry, you have a beautiful collection for us.
I do. So People You Know, Places You've Been is a really wonderful collection that looks at ordinary life. Something I love about poetry is it gets you to slow down and look at things maybe a bit more whimsically or magically. And this is looking at, you know, someone you see in the laundromat, or how an antique store can be a palace. And just if you love poetry or you're new to poetry, it's a great collection.
For my family, my husband is a big nonfiction reader. It's like how I get him.
I get it. That's very common.
And you've got a great collection here, starting off with a rock legend.
Yes. So Geddy Lee, obviously from Rush, one of the biggest Canadian bands. This has a lot about sort of the behind the scenes of Rush, but also his own family story. His parents were in the war. They were Polish Jews who were treated very horribly by the Nazis, and they came to Canada. So there's more to Geddy Lee than sort of all that glitz and glamour, but there is a little bit of that in there. And he's a very honest storyteller, as I think people who know his music really love. So that's a really great one. Another memoir, Ted Nolan. I know he was on the show. My Life in Two Worlds. I really love this story. So he grew up on a First Nation river in Canada, played in the NHL, then became the coach of the Sabres, and was sort of, after 2 really incredible years, just disappeared. And this is the story of what happened in those 2 years. So it looks at racism, it looks at prejudice, but it also looks at resiliency and how he came back from that to continue to coach, which is what he loves to do.
Well, and I'll tell you, after his time here on our show, this is a book that I think you need to pick up before the end of the year.
It's such a great read. Whether or not I am not a huge hockey fan, but I really loved his story and learning about all that in his life. And the last one, The Lost Supper. This is a really fantastic book. There's almost something for everyone in here. So this is about the archaeology of taste. So it's about a man who looks for old, ancient flavors and how the idea of going to the past can help sustainable food in the future. So whether you're an Anthony Bourdain fan, a history fan, or you into travel, The Lost Supper is a really excellent combination of all those things.
Amazing. Vicki, you're such a pro. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.